my very good friend, the Honorable Kirk Cox. Thank you all.
Thank you, Todd.
Everybody.
Well, Todd, that was so nice. Let me say, Speaker Gilbert, because that is like one of my number one goals. And the one thing I will give myself credit for is I have a great eye for talent. And, you know, when I saw Todd early on as a delegate, I've never seen a more effective, I hate to follow him, a more effective speaker, has a heart for the conservative cause, but will battle daily. And he has done a tremendous job as the floor leader when he was a majority leader, and he'll be a great speaker. And so thank you for your friendship. Jennifer, thank you so much for what you do. So let me tell you a little bit about Kirk Cox. Todd said a few words. My love was always to be a teacher. I never wanted to be anything else. And so in U.S. and Virginia government teacher particularly. And when my kids would walk in my class, I would say, and the other teachers hated this, you're now in the most important subject you'll ever take. And the reason I felt so strongly about that is it's a required subject. It might be the only time that student ever learns about, to me, the greatest system of representative democracy the world has ever invented. And so you get to teach the Declaration, the Constitution. I taught the Federalist Papers. I tortured my kids and made them debate the Federalist Papers. But my goal at the end of the day was that they would know those timeless principles we all believe in. And I truly hate to say this, the Democrats just have a different worldview right now. And so I know. So then I went on and I ran for the House of Delegates way back in 1990. And here's the beauty of a citizen legislature. That's what we are. We go back and have real jobs. So I taught almost the entire time I was in the House of Delegates. And Todd, I brag about this. If I'm not mistaken, when I first got there, we made $18,000. Today we make $17,000, I think $640.
Right.
Okay, so it's not like we're getting rich and watching, but that's important. I mean, it's not about the money you make, it's about the service. And I love the concept of teachers go back in the General Assembly and they live what they pass. And that's very, very important, unlike Washington. So I was very blessed. I worked my way up to the whip, then the majority leader and the speaker. And you've got some good candidates running. I do think I'm a little bit different, and frankly, I think Todd's a little bit different in that I would say we sort of been, as Teddy Roosevelt would say, the man in the arena, the people that have actually fought the fight. And I do want to highlight the life issue because that my faith commands that, and I did do that. It was really interesting that the speaker is up on this really high platform, and you're speaker for the entire House. You preside. And you have the seat way down in the well, and it's called the worst seat in the House. And there's a reason for that. You can't, it's way buried, but a speaker never uses it. As a matter of fact, I don't think I'm mistaken where I don't think a speaker's given a formal speech from that seat in 60 years. And I felt so strongly about the Kathy Tron bill, and frankly, Todd was the one that exposed that bill. And we all knew how crucial that bill was going to be. And it was basically abortion up until birth. So here's what I said. It's very simple. I said, as long as I have a microphone, I will speak out for life. And I quoted this number. Just contemplate this number. It was 61,012,997. And I said that number about 4 times. And I said, that's how many abortions we've had since Roe versus Wade. And then I said, one of my favorite characters in the Bible is King David. Because in Psalm 139, he says, you created my innermost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I'm wonderfully and fearfully made. And that's all creator. We just do not want to go down this path. And I think the combination of Todd's great work and hopefully that speech defeated that bill. Let me remind you, we were at 51-49. And so whether it be 2A or the life issue, I've certainly worked very hard on that. But I do want to talk about kitchen table issues a little bit. When we left as Speaker Majority Leader, second largest tax cut in Virginia history, $1 billion. We froze college tuition for the first time in 20 years. And think what that means to so many parents who are just trying to have an affordable college education. We were one of the safest states in the nation. 4th lowest violent crime rate, lowest recidivism rate. Look where we are now. Number 1 state to do business. And so all of that's gone away. And I think Todd feels the same way. It just feels like 30 years of work but what you really fought for has disappeared literally in 2 years. I've always, I hate to say joke, took California 30 years to become California. It's taken Virginia 2 years to become California. And so let's look at those things very quickly. We've been in the bottom 5 in testing. We've had one of the worst vaccine distributions. We were talking about this. You have 5-month waits in DMV. Your Virginia Employment Commission is the worst in the nation. And we've basically been locked down, and we can't open our schools. And we've been scandal-ridden, if you think about it, and how shameful that's been from this administration. But I'm going to highlight one issue that I think really systematically identifies the Democrats in the way they think. And Todd argued this very well on the floor this year, the parole board. Remember, that is Terry McAuliffe's basic parole board. He picked the head of the parole board. And by the way, he deliberately fired Bob McDonald's head of the parole board because he wanted faster results, as he said. And so you have total ownership of this issue by the Democrats. It's all McAuliffe and Northern. And here's what they did basically. They have let 9, probably the most vicious murderers out by basically finagling the law. They have not notified witnesses. They have falsified minutes. They have openly advocated within that parole board to let those people out. And I'll give you a really tough example, and that's Vincent Martin. Vincent Martin, years ago, shot someone with a sawed-off shotgun in a robbery, went to jail for 5 years, got out, robs a 7-Eleven early in the morning. He's going the wrong way on a one-way street, and Michael O'Connor, a 23-year-old police officer, stops him. Doesn't know anything about the robbery. Asks him to get out of the car. He shoots him, and then executioner style shoots him 4 more times in the face. So that's who they let out by not notifying witnesses. And that's not some administrative error. And we have argued on the floor, there's just no thought for victims whatsoever. They're never a consideration. And I've called on both Northern and McAuliffe. I called on Northern to fire the parole board, and it's just crickets. You hear nothing from them. So we really do need to turn this around. And we have a great chance to do that. And I am very, very committed to do that. And we can do it. I know a lot of people say you can't win Northern Virginia. Sure, you can do better in Northern Virginia than you're doing right now. You can do better in a lot of the inner cities than you're doing right now. You know, I actually started at Peabody Middle School. It's 90% minority. As Todd said, my district's the bluest Republican district in the state. It's 30% minority. I knocked on 8,000 doors. Republicans are very, very poor about talking to folks and getting out of their comfort zone. So you go into the areas that I went into, they care about their kids. There's dignity in work. They care about jobs. They actually do like low taxes. They don't like for their energy bills to be going up $800 a year.
Which is what's happening.
It's what happened. It's what the Democrats passed. They like to feel safe. They want jobs that match educations. They want good career and tech programs. They want good credentialing. They want affordable higher education. And when you sit down and talk about things like that, they really identify that. And I'll give you one issue, for example, in Northern Virginia. You might have heard of the Thomas Jefferson Governor's School. It's probably the #1 governor's school in the nation. U.S. News and World Report says. The Democrats have changed that from merit-based, where you take basically the admission exam, where kids have waited for years to get in that school, just open enrollment, just let basically anyone come. You've got Asian American, Korean, Indian parents who are furious, over that type of thought process. And I think you'll see those kind of issues over and over and over again. So with that, long enough speech. I really, really appreciate you coming. I will guarantee you this about Kirk Cox. No one will outwork me. I will try to be everywhere. I will talk to people. I will really articulate those conservative issues and causes. This is a year we can win, and we really do need to win. So I appreciate you coming out. If you go to kirkcox.com, it's really simple. I got a simple name. You can click on my website, and you can be a delegate.
You can do it right here, too.
You can do it right. Well, that'd be easier.
Yeah,
okay,
we got forms.
You have a form right here. The convention is May 8th. And so thank y'all very much. And
it will be a drive-through at the fairgrounds. So that's all you have to do is drive through and vote. Go ahead.
So yeah, but you do have to fill out the one-page form. And the nice thing is, it's a drive-through convention, as Todd said. It's ranked choice voting, so you only have to vote once. And so it's a pretty easy process if you look at it. So I would really, really value your support. If I could, I'll go ahead and take any questions too.
Yeah.
All right.
Any questions?
So anybody got any questions?
Bill?
Sure.
I've noticed that one lady who announced her candidacy is coming. I kind of dismissed her, but there's maybe 2 or 3 others. What do you think would set yourself apart from them? One that's advertising on TV says he's the political outsider. I have no idea who these people are, so I would just like to have an idea as to where you would consider yourself standing a little apart from them, and where do you differ, if any, on some issues?
My guess, if you look at let's be candid. If you look at most of the Republican candidates for governor, they're going to be pro-2A. They're going to be pro-life. On a lot of those key issues, I think the same. I would say the big difference, and I'll give you a few examples, and that is knowing how and what immediately do as governor is very important. I'll give you. So governors have over hundreds of boards and commissions that they appoint. Okay, I think we're all upset. For example, a lot of what's taught on college campuses. We're very upset about the council culture. We're very upset with Democrats shaming Republicans. You can't even say what you believe anymore. So how do you affect that? Well, let me tell you, the number one thing you can do is, as governor, you appoint every board of visitor to every college, university board. So number one, knowing that and knowing exactly sort of how to go about that. So what a college president's going to try to do with them is wine and dine them. Let's only have a 3 or 4 day meeting. Let's not really look at the budget that hard. Let's not look at the curriculum that hard. Let's not look and see whether you have professors that are balanced. Okay? I've chaired the higher ed subcommittee. I know exactly how the game's played. I know exactly how to sit down with the college president and say it's a new game in town, and I can be very, very effective to me turning those things around very quickly. Go to K-12, for example, which is another big issue. And frankly, we have the same problem in K-12. You've got a lot of curriculum right now, which to me doesn't teach those fundamental principles I talked about. Remember, you've got a state superintendent, you've got a board of education, okay? You've got critical curriculum committees. If you know what you're doing, you can turn those things very, very around very quickly. Election integrity. I know we all care about that a lot. Fair and honest elections. Don't forget the governor picks the commissioner for the state board of elections. And he drives a lot of that. So I think the real advantage I have is knowing exactly where to go very quickly to change things. And let's face it, at times you have to build coalitions. You got to know which Democrats, and they're not a whole lot anymore, but there still are some. You got to know which Democrats, for example, what issue you can get things done on. I have passed over 100 major veterans legislation. I have a real heart for that. And I frankly found some Democrats I can work with on those issues. I found some Democrats I can work with on some key K-12 issues. And I could drone on, but let's talk about choice in education. I'm a little bit unusual. I'm a public school teacher who's for choice, because I think it's a win-win. You need a little bit of competition for the public schools.
Right.
But you can't go up to Fairfax County and say, I hate public schools. And frankly, you can't say this either. You can't say, I hate the federal government. Half of them work for the federal government. So I think you need to be smart enough when you go up there, okay, to focus. And we do stuff like that. We go up there and go and say things like that, and you've lost, frankly, 60% of the vote. Nothing better than a public school teacher who's taught inner city, who's done nothing but teach for 30 years, saying, okay, here's how we can improve our public schools, and here's how we can put a very effective school choice component in. If you're an outsider and come in and try to do that, it's very, very, very difficult. So I would say on a whole host of things, it's very important to have that knowledge. The reason why Ty Willoughby is such a good speaker is frankly because he's been majority leader. And he's been minority leader. He knows exactly how to debate, and frankly, he knows when to sort of turn the heat up and when not to turn the heat up, when to put a coalition together. And that's I want to get things done. I have no interest. You got 4 years. And so I want to get as much done as possible. So I would say that's the biggest advantage I would have. I kid. Pete Snyder and Glenn, both fine guys. And I love the outsider bit, but I always kid them all the time I said, Glenn, when you retired at Carlyle Group, I can't imagine you bring someone in that had no business experience whatsoever. Let's be CEO of Carlyle Group, never ran a business before. And frankly, to me, governor's a little bit the same way.
Right. Let me just add, what I was going to say when I introduced Kirk is that of all the people running for governor on both sides, nobody is more prepared to be governor, including Terry McAuliffe, who's already been governor once before. Okay? This is the main thing.
Others?
I have a question.
Sure.
I think our battle is going to be with the voter ID and the election integrity. And with Northam in there now, and whatever executive orders he pretends to put forward, we're going to have a battle with voter ID being lessened as well too. How's the integrity of our vote and the insurance that we do get the votes to put you in office? How's that going to happen?
Well, let's maybe take that two different ways, because you're right. You have two issues. Once you become governor, what would you do? But what are you going to do is you're running. So I'm going to handle both. Let me handle both, because I think they're good questions. Once you become governor, I think a lot of what George has done recently, a lot of that makes a lot of sense. So obviously voter ID for absentee ballots. Democrats have pushed through the concept of a drop box, numerous drop boxes. Georgia went to a very limited amount of drop boxes that were emptied daily and secure. That's a very good idea. Holding, obviously, local registrars accountable. So there are tons of things you can do. I put a bill in this year, for example, that currently your state board of elections is 3 Democrats, 2 Republicans. So basically your local boards are that way. Whoever's governor sort of governs that. And I put a bill in this year that would make it 3-3. Instead of having the commissioner picked by the governor, you might find this unusual running for governor, the commissioner is actually picked by the 3-3 board. Takes all the politics out of elections. And I did that on purpose because I wanted to put the Democrats on the spot. Let's just make elections neutral. Well, at 7 o'clock in the morning, they killed that bill. So I do think as governor, there are plenty of things you can do. Also, don't forget, we have a system called Verus. That is sort of our big system. That system actually in our budget is being totally redone. We're redesigning our system. So whoever's governor coming up in November will probably oversee that. So there's a lot you can do as governor. So what can you do now that you're running? Well, you're not going to get any of those laws, and I'm going to be candid. You know, we put all those bills in, and obviously the Democrats killed them. But please don't lose hope. Probably the main thing a governor can do right now is governors' campaigns are expensive campaigns. So they're $30 and $35 million campaigns. One thing I have committed to, which I think is very important, and the governor's probably in a better position than almost anyone else. He can do this, but he's really got to concentrate on his individual House races. But you can put in place a really good voter integrity program as governor, where you go into every polling place, and I'm talking about tough polling places. In my area, that would be the Petersburgs, that would be my areas of Chesterfield that are 80, 90% Democrat, and you make sure that you have trained observers that know the code section, that know exactly what they can do, that will be very, very vigorous. You need to be ready with your legal team to challenge in September, October, November, when elect makes certain decisions on absentee ballots, on signatures, etc. You got to be ready to go in and do that. So there are things you can do right now, and you'll find this really unusual. In my last election, I won absentee ballots 4-1. I won absentee ballots 4-1 over my opponent. And as a matter of fact, I think probably in about half our races, we won absentee ballots. And you might find, how'd y'all do that? Because we knew that was going to happen. So we did something called an absentee ballot chase. So we had a very sophisticated program where my staff and me, we constantly called and chased down absentee ballots, etc. And we got our fair share. So that's the rules you're going to have to play under. We need to be more aggressive in that. And let me end with this. I won a district that was almost impossible to win. I had $1.5 million put against me. It's winnable. I think the atmosphere is going to be very, very good for us this year. The issue mix is the best issue mix we've had in years. We have more candidates than ever. We've got to think we can win that. We cannot go in, and I know that the tendency of what's going on. We cannot go in with a defeatist attitude. We've got to put everything in there. The Democrats will be immensely overconfident. They are right now. They're fighting among themselves. There are about a fourth of the Democrats who are I can't believe this, they're being challenged to the left. They have progressives running against progressives. And if you look in the governor's race, they're running so quickly to the left because they have so many progressive candidates, and they're chasing McAuliffe even further to the left. So we have a great opportunity to win. But there are things we can do both in the election. I think we can do things, particularly when you're governor.
You just touched on it there. How do you think you'll reach that centrist left? How do you think, I mean, I think everybody in the room's tired of the division in the state of Virginia. How do we bring those centrist lefts to your candidacy?
You got to be smart. Number one, when you go up to Northern Virginia, you know, Pat Harity, for example, was the last Republican on the board. I sat down with him for an hour and a half and said, "You've never lost." And we really sort of walked through sort of the things he does in Northern Virginia. I have talked to Danny Vargas, who's here, the Latino chamber up there. I have a gentleman, for example, who's very connected to the Vietnamese community, who can be pretty conservative. There are several issues in Northern Virginia right now that are very, opening schools is huge up there right now. They are furious. In Loudoun and Prince William, areas we have not done well lately in, they are very, very mad. I mentioned the TJ issue. You've got so many parents that are furious over that. You've got some prosecutorial issues up there with some very, very liberal folks. You know, I have committed to law enforcement. I have a real heart for that. One of the very first, Bill Kirk was supporting me. One of the very first things I said is we have got to raise sheriff deputies' pay in particular. You can't have sheriff deputies starting at $33,000, $35,000 a year. But on the law enforcement issue, look how they've overstepped. And I think even swing voters are going, this is way too far when you see some of the bills they've passed. So I think there's a whole combination of things you can do. And there's some workforce issues. You've got more students that have left Virginia coming out of college that are staying in Virginia. And the reason is for that is our courses don't meet where the jobs are. We don't have enough in cyber, we don't have enough in IT, we don't have enough in healthcare, we don't offer enough internships, especially in your sophomore and junior year. Not every kid's going to four-year college. We do not offer robust enough credentialing, etc. We need to make sure that we have those types of programs. We need better career and tech programs. That identifies with every parent. They care about that. And I'll end my very long answer with this. One-party Democrat control. Tom mentioned this. You test that polling right now, and it's a great thematic for Republicans because people in Virginia inherently distrust one-party government. They frankly, historically like divided government, and they're seeing in Washington and Richmond one-party Democrat control. And I think we can smartly do that. But I will tell you, you need a candidate who I think has run before. You better not make a lot of mistakes. You better say the right things and you better be able to interview with the Washington Post, which I've done, he has done numerous times. You've got to have that kind of experience. But I think we can do very well. And after all, governor's a little bit of fun too. I got to race go-karts today with Elliott Sadler, okay, which was really cool, and Hermie Sadler. And I got to do a hot dog review.
Yeah.
So this is not all tough.
And the Sadlers,
the dairy right.
The Sadlers endorsed you today.
They did. They did. They didn't. They said I wasn't a very good driver. That hurt.
Some would say that about them too.
And they spun me. And they deliberately spun me out. It was really. I mean, it was. And they ran me into the. They set me up too. It was really bad. So.
You're all right.
But I think you got to have a little bit of fun at this. I think you got to be, really passionate. But the biggest mistake I think governors candidates make is you just got to be yourself too. I do think people are looking hopefully for just honest, real people that will, just tell them the truth. So that's what I'll hopefully be about.
Thanks everybody for taking the time to come out tonight.
We'll get around and say hello to more people. So thank you. Very, very nice.